All right, so we'll go ahead and start on time. I'm here in Philly at the American Vegan Center in Old City, Philadelphia. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the work of vegans and the American Vegan Center. We have a crew here. Regan, would you like to introduce yourself and the rest of the crew?
Hi, I'm Regan. I'm the communications and merchandise assistant here at the ABC. I help set up a lot of the events. Excited for all of you guys to hear this tonight. We have two intern co-ops working with us right now. This is Katie and Bex. They go to Drexel.
Hello. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm an intern from Drexel. I'm a marketing major.
Wonderful.
Hello, I'm Bex, also Drexel Co-op, game design.
Wonderful. And the title of this is, as everyone knows who signed up, if we don't eat the cows, what's going to happen? Are they going to go extinct? Right. And the vegan behind the curtain is going to hear what we say from the next room and go ahead and move the slides. So I have to be careful to keep my fingers off the slides. So here we go. This was produced and presented by me, Lee Hall. I'm a longtime vegan, going on 41 years. So just crossed the 40 mark. Yeah. So very happy to be here with the American Vegan Society. And this is the second presentation in the American Vegan Society Ethics Series. We had an earlier one that celebrated Jay Dinshaw. Philip Murphy is here with us now and helped to plan that. Vance Lempool is here with us now, and also Ann Dinshaw. And I'm giving a special shout out to them because they really asked me to do this presentation. Okay, Vance. I switch here and Vance can see it. All right, here, yes. So this picture is me with Herbie. And if anybody's ever been to any of the New Jersey sanctuaries, you might have met Herbie at one of them for the animals or Skylands. This is me meeting Herbie for the animal sanctuary. And this, to me, Herbie is a happy cow. I think that Herbie is about as happy as a cow can be. We hear a lot about the happy cows and how we want to make life perfect for them. But really, just like the presidential pardon of one turkey, right? This is one of the few beings who escaped from the commodity system, the system of domination, and is in a refuge. So when people say, hey, don't you want to stop the cows from going extinct? Vegans won't even, would cows even be around if everybody was vegan? But the question is, would we really be looking after cows in some sort of tremendous global refuge? Is that really the vegan ideal? To have cows in situations where, like me and Herbie there in this picture, where we could kind of snuggle with each other? Let's break that down. Let's examine that. Because Herbie was the lucky one. Most of them are anything but lucky. We take their milk, they bellow for days, mourning the calves who we turn into the $7.99 veal special. Or that one day the dairy cows, like the beef cattle before them, will go in slotted trucks to slaughter. So regardless if we're eating the meat, the flesh or the milk, eventually they all wind up in the same place. These realities are not secrets. It's obvious what happens to certainly the cattle raised for flesh. And it's really not a secret that dairy cows are eventually killed. I mean, basically that's not too hard to figure out that their flesh too will be used one day, maybe not on the very fancy dinner plate, but their flesh too will be used one day. And meanwhile, we are using them for milk. Why do we have trouble perceiving that as exploitation? And maybe it's because we grow up with children's books in which little kids are running about with milk pails and these cows with these lovely little bells on their necks, right, in the pictures. That's what we see. And we're taught to think that this is a loving picture of reciprocity. And the vegans too, we vegans too, have been raised to think that there is or could be some sort of ideal care for the cows of the world. And maybe that's what we should be doing. We should be running a huge refuge for cows and chickens and pigs. Maybe that's what we should be doing. But are we perceiving the domination in the rescue? They cannot live apart from us. They are under our control, even in a rescue situation. So when we see a picture, and it doesn't matter what this book is, what's the content of the book, Kiss the Cow. I picked this out for the cover. So here we're judging a book by its cover, all right? And we're looking at the cow and the kiss and the little kid and the milk pail. So apparently the little kid is involved in the exploitation, but it's very loving. Look at this beautiful, it's like having a little pet or a big pet. Does this book, this is an important question, I think, for all of us, including vegans. If we see the cover of this book, do we think it's cute? Or do we think does it make us a little nervous? Is it a little jarring? What about the evolution and the history cows could have had if we had never dominated them, if we had never domesticated them? They are a community of beings. And I'm going to talk about community. I'm not using the word lightly. What happened to their ancestors? Who were their ancestors? Do you have an idea in your mind what they look like? I'm going to show a picture. Will you tell the kids, book author, book illustrator, will you tell the kids that selective breeding deprived cows of their freedom one generation at a time? Here's the picture. Wow, right? Wow. This is not who we saw in the children's book. What has happened here? And I'm thinking that grand being, the aurochs, single or plural, aurochs is the name of this being. So if they're in groups, they're aurochs. If it's one, it's an aurochs. And I'm thinking this being is saying, humans rob me of my evolution, my communities, my existence. I am no longer on the face of the earth. So not only have we dominated, not only have we domesticated them, not only have we commercialized them, but we've also extinguished them. They are extinct. They are already extinct. This is a very important concept that I think a lot of vegans don't give a lot of thought to. But they were communities. The aurochs carved paths through the woodlands and the steppes of Europe, North Africa, and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. And in the early 17th century, the 1600s, we ended it all. The last living aurochs died in Poland, likely, according to the Encyclopedia of Dairy Sciences, they know, killed by poachers, so in a forest in Poland. So that being there that you just saw, you can imagine. The last one. Today we graze cattle on the remnants of grasslands their ancestors shaped. Did we break an ancient law of nature, forcing their ancestors to reproduce generation by generation into smaller, more manageable beings? In the beginning, when the aurochs were there, if they came through when the humans came along, and the humans made their villages, the aurochs would come through the villages and they would trample the villages. And the villagers would be, we got to do something about these aurochs. And they did. So they made them small, they have been breeding them for more than 10,000 years. And eventually they kept breeding and breeding and breeding until they got to cattle, until they got to cows. It's been tried. Back breeding is called Heck cattle. So there were these Heck brothers in Germany. And they tried to back breed cows. So do the opposite thing, like breed cows larger and larger and try to get more and more DNA that was more and more ancient. They never did it, nor really should they, but that's a question for another day. I mean, should we bring back extinct species? We're not going to go into that tonight, but they haven't been able to do it. They did try. This picture on the right is Earth's terrestrial mammals by weight. So the weight of our body mass is called biomass, okay, in the scientific terms. This picture is showing the weight of Earth, terrestrial mammals on Earth. And you'll see the cattle is that C shape on the left, and it's enormous, more biomass in cattle than any other animals. And then secondly, there are us. Okay, so those dark blue squares in the middle, that's the human body weight on the face of the earth. It is massive. There's our 8 billion right there. And look at our cows. Right? You can also see the pigs, goats, sheep, all the domesticated animals, and they are reflected in these weight boxes, these boxes that show how much weight is on the face of the earth. And now you look for, in the little nooks and crannies, right? You look for the bright green, and that is the free living animals. So when we're talking about communities and respect for communities, and when we're talking about animal liberation, who are we talking about? We talk about animal liberation. The little green specks there. The little green specks trying to eke out a living on whatever tiny bits of territory we don't think is useful. That's where they still are. Not very much, not very many of them left. So we have turned a planet teeming with autonomous evolving life into a world where the untamed cling to nooks and crannies as one dominator species covers the earth with its livestock and pets. And you see on the top of the graphic there, where they're talking about humans, our pets and livestock, and free living animals. we tend to think of pets as a cute, cozy idea. But you see what's going on here and what we're doing to the bio community where animals can live free. We have crowded them out. And I want to go back to the roots of veganism now. 1951, when the early vegans, for 1951, vegans had only been around for 7 years. Okay. And they decided that they would come out with a definition that was also it sounds like a mission statement. Okay. Veganism is not so much welfare as liberation. They knew it. There it is in 1951 for the creatures and for the mind and heart of humanity. Not so much an effort to make the present relationship bearable as an uncompromising recognition that because it is in the main one of master and slave, it has to be abolished. You see what they're saying here? It's not a question of making domestication bearable, sweet, cute, pat them on the head, ring the little bell on their neck. It's not what veganism set out to do. It set out to abolish our dominion in the same way that human liberation movements set out to abolish exploitation of one human group by another. This idea too, is a deep liberation movement. And here's one other it looks very bright and catchy kind of rendition of this idea of the biomass of various animals. And you see that it's, interestingly here, they're looking at on the top left, 60 million tons of wild mammals. They're also looking at sea mammals there. So you see the enormity of the elephant and the whale in their weight, right? But look at the deer. Think about that. Keep that in your mind, why they picked a deer. So they're looking at some of the biggest mass of free living animals. And notice that they picked a deer. We'll get back to that or remind me. All right, so on the top right, we have 630 million tons of domesticated animals. Look at the difference between the free living number and the domesticated number in terms of their body mass. Well, you can't do that without crowding out the free living animals. You can't do that. Look at all the land you're going to be taking up for feed just to start, right? In addition to grazing and fish farms and all the other things. And there is us, we're pretty huge, as we know from the earlier graphic. On the orange, 390 million tons is the weight of humans and our body mass on the face of the earth. So it says the bottom line is, and by the way, I put a QR code because it not only links to the graphic, but also the underlying scientific study from whence these figures came. This will be put, I believe, this recording will be put on the American Vegan Society's website, and you'll be able to see that if you're not able to see it now. Only 6% of the combined weight of mammals on Earth is free. Let's go back to 1951. The definers of the vegan movement. In a vegan world, the creatures would be reintegrated within the balance and sanity of nature. Sanity, the root of the word sanity and how it was used there meant health. A great and historic wrong whose effect upon the course of evolution must have been stupendous would be righted. A great and historic wrong whose effect upon the course of evolution must have been stupendous would be righted. The idea that his fellow creatures might be used by humanity for self-interested purposes would be so alien to human thought as to be almost unthinkable. Okay. Back to cowherd. We're now at the point where people are talking about therapy cows. Now, cows came from the aurochs, and you know who they were because we've seen them.
Don't let me video.
Okay. Just the way dogs were selectively bred from the wolves. Think about the wolves and what it means today to have a therapy dog. Do I need to say more? Think about respect for the free living community of wolves. And the idea that now we're at the point where we have therapy dogs. And now let's look at cows. And the idea that they would be treated as pets. This is from a few years ago, Lansing State Journal. So here you see in Michigan where cow raising is a big thing. What you're looking at is a university dairy teaching school in Michigan. And what you're looking at is a picture of kids, and on the website of Lansing State Journal, there are videos of kids filing in before their exams. They want to take their stress off, so they want to hug a cow. So they pay $10 a half an hour to hug a cow. How loving. The tag is in this is a commercial, this is a dairy operation at a university, dairy teaching operation. Look at the tag, look at the neck, with the chain. Therapy cows, huh? What's really love? Huggy smoochy around someone with a chain on their neck? Or is it was veganism, what the early vegans are trying to message to us from 1951? They're sending us a message. Like we're going to be sending messages to people decades after. We're going to be good ancestors. No, we're going to be sending messages to people decades later saying, we object. We object. We're animal liberationists, and this is a serious thing. And if you don't understand it, you are ruining evolution on the face of the earth. If we don't respect ourselves as the primates we are, and part of a greater bio community that should be free to live and evolve without our hands on their necks. We object, we object, we object. We're speaking to those in the future. We need to start, obviously, by speaking to those who will understand. Veganism is, in truth, an affirmation that where love is, exploitation vanishes. I put the QR code to Veganism Defined, 1951, as it's printed by the International Vegetarian Union on their website. I love that it's there. And I can't say enough about the sentence that you're looking at on your screen right now and how it guides my life. On my blog, which is veganplace.blog, I think this was 2017 when I did this entry, but I noticed that there were loads and loads of lamb pictures on the pamphlets that the vegans were passing out. And I wanted to discuss this. I want to, talk this out with people who interact, with my blog. And so I said, vegan leaflets often include cute, vulnerable animals like lambs, animals being hugged, animals being kissed. And how can you eat an innocent lamb? The pamphlet asks. And I get that because it seems really sadistic if you're looking at that lovely little cuteness, right? Like, how could you, right? And I get that. Cruel indifference to imagine a young sheep and think, so what? I'll have the rack of lamb. And yet somehow we're brought up to not think that's cruel indifference. But we know what we're doing. And yet, Every time we see a cute lamb in a vegan brochure, I don't, this is, I know people get upset. I've done talks like this a couple of other times, it's kind of on the same thing. People have interrupted me when I say this. But I'm still going to keep saying it. That every time we look at that in vegan information, vegan material, we're embedding vulnerability. We're not embedding the idea of a liberated being or a liberated community. So I let yes, cute, but you know, I have questions. So we look back at the ancestral sheep. They're still around. There still are. The Muflon and free living ancestors of the Muflon are still on the face of the planet. And those are communities that we can defend. But how are we going to be able to defend them if the domesticated animals, we've seen the biomass on the earth of domesticated animals, they keep pushing them out of the way. We're not thinking about it. And how much do we think about this as vegans? The importance of defending free living communities. These sheep in their free living state, their ancestral state, have been forcibly bred by humans since more than 10,000 before the current era. That's about more than 12,000 years. So us, domestication sheep, more than 12,000 years. But they were evolving on their own in areas in the Caspian region, around the Caspian Sea. They were doing fine. And now they're considered threatened by scientists.
Are we able to ask questions, or do you want to wait till the end, or I missed the beginning?
Yeah, maybe we'll wait to the
Wait till
end.
the end? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't forget it. I'll have to put that picture back up. So this is on the matter of communities, of respecting other beings as we respect communities. And this is an article from Science several years back. And it's Brett Jesmer is the lead author, Jesmer, Brett Jesmer. And the name of it is Ungulate Migration, Culturally Transmitted, Evidence of Social Learning from Translocated Animals. Ungulates, of course, are hooved animals. So we're talking about deer, sheep, elk, and so forth. And the bottom line is, I picked out the sentence that I think expresses the bottom line in this article. Our findings indicate that learning and cultural transmission are the primary mechanisms by which ungulate migrations evolve. Loss of migration, therefore, would expunge generations of knowledge. I really like what these scientists are doing and the way they are looking at the rams, because they are looking at the rams in terms of passing on generational knowledge. How knowledge, culture is a part of evolution of other animals, other than human animals. Culture is what they're talking about in a scientific article. And that's very helpful, because when somebody says, oh, can't we just relocate these rams and then put the ski resort here? I mean, we'll just be kind by relocating the rams. You see what would happen. Generations of knowledge is gone. And so the same thing with, oh, there are too many deer, let's shoot them. And then we'll have the proper number for this density of this particular area, they say. How can you define deer in numbers when you know that they're learning from generation to generation how to migrate in their region? And if we don't respect their migration, we don't respect their evolution. And how can we not respect the evolution of non-human beings? That's the biggest environmental question, other than climate crisis, which is interwoven, that there is. That's the biodiversity question. It's a cultural question. And the vegans knew it as early as 1944, 1951, when they defined themselves. And so we're almost there. And I wanted to say, this is my last slide, but I wanted to say one thing too about the deer. And this whole thing about too many deer, because this is something that is very dear to my heart. And I see also Marianne Barron is here. Dr. Ana Negron is here. And I'm sure if I put the down arrow, I would find more people who have been out there with me, right? And I've been out there with them doing this advocacy work for deer. And one of the reasons that we have so many deer, because there are a lot of deer, goes back to those graphics. Because if you destabilize the way we've done and wipe out so many free living communities, and then you put in their place domesticated animals, what are you going to be doing when you do that? Kill off who? Definitely kill off who? Who are they killing off when they do that? Constantly, systematically. It's going to be the predator, right? The wolves, the big cats, right? And that's why there are so many. So this becomes a holistic idea. And so we can say, and that's why what we do is say, respect the coyotes, respect the wolves. Let's do coyote coexistence initiatives in the Mid-Atlantic United States. Let's respect the interconnected biocommunities instead of shooting off one because you already killed the communities that keep their numbers in balance. You see how it's all related? And you see how it's all related to veganism. This language here is, I paraphrased it from my book. Of course, everything in my book comes from what I know from people like Present Company and also from the early vegans, the Vegan Society in England, the American Vegan Society, right here where we're sitting. And so, the book is On Their Own Terms, Animal Liberation for the 21st Century. The vegan principle does not challenge us to integrate them into pleasant scenery or that the freedom of living beings and habitat without any need to seek human rescue or shelter or companionship is a healthy thing to want, and that the lack of it is not. Veganism, where love is, exploitation vanishes. I can do this work because I work on Patreon. So I have a Patreon account, and I have created the Studio for the Art of Animal Liberation. And there's no tax benefit for any of the people that help out with this work. It's not a nonprofit organization. It's just a studio on Patreon. And I'm so thankful for everyone who is in the studio, who contributes to the studio, that I would like to thank them. So thank you, patrons of the studio, Chris Kelly, Pamela Page, Jamie, Steve, and Jackson, Missouri, Maura Reese and Lydia Groshoff, Nancy Coble, Jenny Stein, Annie Taylor, Bill Drellis, hi Bill, Valerie McGowan, Charlotte Cressy, Deb Thompson, Michael Herron, Marianne Barron, hi Marianne, Alan Eckert, Maureen Sheener, Jesse Farrell, Lois Baum, Kathy Zager, Carol Lutter, Heather Steele, Mary Jo Winkus, Kath Potagill, Amanda Crow, Project Animal Freedom. Thank you, folks. Kay Conacher, Michael Zager, and Luann McDonald. Hi, Luann and Michael, if you're here. Aurora Cooney, Kathy Burt, and a special thanks to former cattle farmer Harold Brown. And thank you tonight to all who showed up for the American Vegan Society supporting the vegan movement. And before we go on, we have a question.
Yeah, I think I just missed the sentiment on the slide before. The one we're looking at is like the lamb one, where it's talking about it embeds vulnerability. I think I was kind of just like missing the underlying. I may have missed the beginning, but what was the, I guess, criticism of that? It seemed to be.
I'm going to see it. Oh, it must be.
Yeah, like the one before that, the bottom point.
Okay. All right, these cute lambs in the bottom point, every time we see a cute lamb, vulnerability is further embedded in our collective psyche. Let me give you an example. I am very much for sanctuaries. And I live with rescued animals. So I don't want this to be misunderstood. I appreciate and respect rescuers. There is a tendency in our material as vegans to have us doing this, carrying, rescuing, carrying the animal out of the building, kissing the animal. And we tend to think of veganism as something that saves, sweet, cute animals like this. And I've been told by other vegans that the work that's done in sanctuaries is perfect. Again, complete respect for sanctuaries, but that they are creating heaven on earth. And this is exactly what vegans are looking for, a world that looks like, everyone is fluffy and happy and loved. And what the vegan definition is saying is that the lack of exploitation is love, which is, I think, hard for us to get. Because we're used to thinking nurturing, like nurturing a baby. We're used to thinking that nurturing other animals the way we would nurture a baby is veganism. Are people still here? It's like white and it's like there's a little buffer thing that's frozen.
That's terrible.
I see somebody talking, so somebody's on there. Yes, we see you. Oh,
yeah, we're all
a little
on.
voice from coming up. There they are. Oh,
So wait,
good,
did you
good.
finish answering that? Because there may be questions.
There
in
may
the
be
chat.
questions up here. Am I getting kind of towards my discomfort with?
I think I see what you're saying there, but I guess what I'm wondering is like, is vulnerability a bad thing in the view, or
No,
okay?
no, but there's something about a deer, a coyote, a fox, a bat, a bird, who doesn't need rescue, who we've never put in a situation needing rescue. And we see, imagine bats. What animals do you see?
With bats?
What animals do you see? I mean, I see bats at dusk. What animals do you see
Oh,
around
yeah,
here
like owls and stuff.
that are free living animals?
Yeah, I think I was thinking of when I go to Maine in the nighttime, there's like all these crickets and owls and different creatures like that.
There we go. Okay. Crickets, owls. You definitely hear them. Maybe you don't see them, but maybe you do at dusk, right?
Yeah.
And you see them. It's dusk. They're coming. The owls, bats, crickets start singing. And you have that moment where, oh, there they are. There they are. And you go, I love them. I love them. I love that they're free. And their own families are going to nurture them and raise them, and their own communities and the other communities in their greater bio community are going to be with them for their whole lives. They're going to do things on their terms. And I can spot them from time to time, and I don't want to get too close. I don't want to intrude on what they're doing, but I can love them. And when I love them, there's nothing interrupting it. Like if I love a domesticated animal, I'll give you an example as my rescued cats, because I love them. And I hold them, and I kiss them. And I'm always so sorry. That love is always mixed in with their ancestral wildcats, the free living wildcats, who are hanging on by a thread. There's like 400 Scottish wildcats left. Last time I looked, I'm sure there's less. There's fewer now. And one of the things that happens with Scottish wildcats is people whose cats are roaming, domesticated cats are roaming, are interbreeding with the Scottish wildcats. And therefore, when they do DNA tests, they're finding out that Scottish wildcats as a evolving community are being compromised. And that way their evolution is being interrupted by what we're doing. So love to me, I had to learn love. Because like I know what love, I know I love Philip. I know I can hug and kiss Philip. You know, I love, we know what love is amongst humans. There's a complication with the way we love animals. And we think it's about nurturing. But I don't know what happened to their parents. That's why I have them, So that love, that is liberating love, is different from a love that's a controlling love. And this cute lamb is a domesticated lamb. And although I may love that lamb, and I may convince you not to eat that lamb from my brochure, and that's fantastic. It shows the cognitive dissonance. You don't really want to eat that lamb. Look how cute. Oh, you're right. I don't. Good. We've done something. But have we taken it to the next question, which is, can we really love? Can we really liberate animals who are selectively bred over the generations, whose mass is controlled by us? Basically, our controlled waters, our controlled land. And so we're letting the others, we're not loving liberation enough. That's how I feel.
Okay.
So
just trying to read this point then, is it the idea that vulnerability, like we perceive them as vulnerable when we should more of just perceive them as they're capable of living their own lives by themselves? Is that kind of what it's okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. No, this being is not capable of, we can't just say, let's liberate this animal into the field. It's a big misunderstanding. I saw on The Onion, they were kind of taking the Mickey out of vegans, right? They were saying, well, vegans it was like this McDonald's thing where they were supposedly like made a big farm behind the McDonald's and like let all these cows go free and everything. So The Onion was saying, the vegans have been here, liberated all these cows, and let them all go free. And then there were all kinds of problems that happened. It was like, yeah, that's not really what veganism is. It's not really, we want all the cows to go free. If we've already put them in dependent circumstances, like the cats, then we have, I believe, as the human controllers that have done this thing called domestication, it's our responsibility to save, to rescue. But that's rescue. And we love them. And we do consider them part of our families. And I'm not saying anything else. I mean, there are. Okay. But there's a sadness for what we've taken away. So what I am saying is, are we, through our messaging as vegans, are we, through our messaging as vegans, going to that second question, which is a liberation question? So it's beyond rescue, it's beyond care, it's beyond anti-cruelty, it's beyond welfare, and it's liberation. Are we talking about, like, if we don't eat this animal on our plate, that's great. And we made the connection that we wouldn't want to eat you. But what we're also doing is we're saving all that land rather than growing, raising sheep, rather than killing the wolves, rather than killing or whoever's there, coyotes, wildcats. That's what we're doing by not. I mean, it's not just this iconic, cute, fluffy animal we're saving. And in fact, I'd say look at the difference between the word save and spare. So it's one thing to save somebody. But it's another thing to spare them from being in the situation of needing that saving. Who wants to be saved? What being, what community wants to be rescued? I mean, sure, if we're in an emergency, we want somebody to come along and help us, but we didn't want them to put us there. We wanted to have our life on our own terms. And are we talking about that as vegans? And how are we going to talk about that as vegans? That's why we're in the room tonight, because we're dealing with the ethics series, the American Vegan Society. And when we talk in the ethics series, we're asking questions of ourselves. How do I perceive other animals as a vegan? Where is it that I might have been missing something? Was I thinking that perfectly heavenly life for animals would be the sanctuary, the farm sanctuary? Or is maybe that's not, because that's just taking in refugees from a system of domination. A movement should support its refugees, but it should also be looking at liberation and anti-oppression.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Clarified all kinds of things that needed to be clarified.
We don't have any questions in the chat, but just going to read into the record. People saying thank you and yes, great. And Carolyn saying fantastic presentation. As Lee noted, it's important to remember that breeding commodified animals into existence takes habitat away from free living beings. Veganism is holistic social justice.
It's Carolyn Harris. And Carolyn Harris has a podcast called Always for Animal Rights. If you want to look that one up, it's really an ethics series. And so Carolyn Harris is doing a wonderful job. Shout out to Carolyn, and also for putting everything that we just did in a succinct couple of sentences. Thank you, Carolyn. Marco sees. Elaine, thank you. Carolyn, thank you. Oh, Kyle, thank you, and thank you to Project Animal Freedom, Kyle. That's another shout out. Project Animal Freedom. They're doing fantastic things. They want to convert the Midwest to veganism. They're working very hard on it. And they've got Kyle and Project Animal Freedom constantly connect the anti-oppression dots. Constantly. So they're always bringing in social justice movement with into veganism. And that's wonderful. Let's not be afraid of anti-oppression movements and work together, respect all movements. And that's the way also that this movement will be respected.
Any other live in-person questions? Then I move that we consider this presentation done. I'd like everybody to give them a hand to Lee.